All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Nikhil Vimal, and I am running the AI PACE program here at Consulta. And I'm very, very excited to share a little bit about what that means, look at the industry a little bit, and in very similar fashion to Naomi, kind of break down the different sort of stages that you have to follow to adopt AI successfully into your organization, or at least as the precursor, right? The program takes you a little bit more in depth, but we're going to look at a high level look today. So let's start off that. So AI pace, again, the problem, the cost, the fix. That's sort of the breakdown of the sort of exercise here. And the way that I want everyone to think about this is that essentially, AI is a type of technology and a type of methodology that everyone wants to use right now. But even now that we're about 4 years into this really big generative AI boom. Obviously, AI has been around since the 1960s, I think. But really, the way that AI is going right now and the way that it's been in this current sort of big boom is the last 4 years. And we're starting to see the first cracks in the foundation and the first real results of experimentation at this point. And at Consult, I think it's important. We find it important to share that while it is very tempting to just jump in and get going, there are actual problems and costs and things that need to be fixed, even around AI, or even around how organizations works, which leads me to my first major sort of problem, I guess, which is that the value of AI comes from rewiring how companies run. There's a lot of talk. Obviously, it requires a rewiring of data. Requires a rewiring of, potentially how money is spent and how people are hired and all these other things. But it's fundamentally looking at how companies run. And this is an interesting study from McKinsey because they did look at small business. They looked at startups, looked at mid-size, looked at enterprise, looked at every single industry. And fundamentally, no one is getting the real value of AI and the real returns they're looking for without fundamental understanding that it's not a band-aid solution. It's not something you can just slap on. It is actually a rewiring. And I'm going to go in a second here on why that's even some stats to back it up. But I think that's like the mindset that I'd like to, invoke to start this whole conversation off is that it's very valuable. If you're using it day to day, if you're using it as a new form of search, like it is very instant. It's very individually valuable. Like we find very quick uses of AI and how it could help us with our work with little things that we do. But when it comes to streamlining and bringing it together at an organization, that's what the AI pace is about. It's literally about setting the pace and the standard to not necessarily jump to be the first to use AI as much as possible and produce as much as you can. It's actually to do it with intention, with some level of clarity, and not necessarily go slower, just at a better pace. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I do want to talk about the proof points of that. I want to talk about how this problem has been manifesting in different ways and also where it's working too, right? So there's a bit of a sliding spectrum as with any innovation. For example, one of the biggest, I think, from Better Up Labs, but they actually took from the McKinsey report and from a lot of other reports just a couple months ago, they found that there was roughly 6 hours a week of human rework and cleaning up AI agent mistakes when adoption is rushed. So they literally asked people how quick they integrated agentic AI and discover that, it's actually almost a full workday per week. This is for managers. This is for associates. This is for any level in the company. If there's a project, there's a team working on something, there are potentially multiple members on that team using up almost a full workday to go back and take care of what might be called slop in certain spaces, right? I think the term that McKinsey used a little bit was like work slop, where it's just producing, but it doesn't say much. It's just something for the sake of using AI, right? So that's already one big thing. And then this is a shocking stat, which I think has actually gone down a little bit, but it's heavily contested right now. 95% of enterprise AI pilots, and actually extended out to mid-market now too, after some years of research, deliver no measurable bottom line impact, which is very shocking because, again, I think it's just the way that you have to look at AI, where it's not, if you're building AI or like AI for organizations or all your customers and you're just trying to push it out as quick as possible, there isn't really measurable bottom line impact, maybe for your day to day, but that doesn't equate to proper efficiency. And so I think the number is down to 90%. I think it's gone down a smidge because of agentic work, but it is important to mention that this number is still thrown around a lot and is something that we at Consult have actually sort of seen in the real world too. 60 to 73% is the general range and average range of AI agentic project failures due to data quality issues. So this is the concept of I've heard this term a lot and I use it, and I think we at Consult champion it a lot, is bad data in, bad data out, good data in, better data out. So it's really bad data in, worse data out, I should say, where AI is a compounding factor. It's a multiplier for work, for productivity. And if you're giving it data that's incorrect, it's going to double down because it's convinced that, okay, well, you're giving me something that you've checked and validated. But again, similar to that earlier thing with the rework, if you're not doing that cleanup, you're in that 73% range, right? And this was a report done again by Capgemini, but in collaboration with a lot of major organizations and enterprises, and again, even mid-market startups as well. And then, another major knowledge worker survey basically said that 8.8 hours per week are wasted by workers manually gathering data that AI should surface. So it's even a connectivity issue too. But I do want to share it's not all bad, right? Those are just some of the major things that people tend to glare over a little bit, or tend to or gloss over rather, and that need to be mentioned. But in manufacturing, for example, there's a 77% adoption rate of AI right now. In nonprofits, it's 92% adoption rate. Tech, obviously, the software engineering world has been shaken up a little bit. And then with legal, there's real strategy, right? Real intentional usage of AI leads to 2x revenue growth, and a lot of industries are seeing it. But similar to nonprofits, and even even in tech, which is like where AI is coming from, there's org level velocity. So people up the chain are not really necessarily making decisions faster. At nonprofits, there's a big issue where they're using AI but don't really know how to use it. In supply chain, there's manufacturing rather. There was something very similar too, where there is use cases, there are things going in the right direction, but there's a big learning curve that companies are not adopting and focusing on. And so, yeah, there is a big problem. And it all comes down to, again, rushed projects, trying to get ahead of competitors, trying to be the first in the market. But we got to reframe that a little bit. So the highest values use cases, and these are, again, kind of taken from different studies, from what we see work at Cansulta, and just sort of looking at the industry across multiple different verticals and company sizes. Knowledge assistance, obviously, that's the low-hanging fruit. That is Claude for enterprise or for organizations, and that's your Salesforce having a chatbot now. These are easy for instant answers. These are making sure that you can get access to data that you need from your analytics tools, and make sure that you can even potentially ask it to take that data and put it somewhere else, right? If you use the Google Suite, you have Gemini move through with you. So obviously, highest value, very quick to see the ROI on, but again, there's nuance to that. Planning support, obviously, like having AI as an assistant to help you with sequencing, scheduling, automation, workflows, fantastic. Quality intelligence, a very nuanced one, because again, if there's a poor data practice at an organization, then AI actually learns how to spot bad data and again, double down on it rather than try to correct it. So while this is very important, we've also seen issues with security. We've seen, hallucination where AI makes up a policy for a company and ends up breaking the terms of service and causing lawsuits. Like, scary stuff can happen. But in theory, its quality intelligence and its eye for mistakes can be better. It just needs the human touch to get there. And then obviously commercial operations, right? We're talking about support. We're talking about service communication. We're talking about account responsiveness. We're talking about all these different things, sales, right? And all these different roles that come together. And the best fit for the best sort of part of an organization that I think needs to think about the pace and velocity of the AI and even the standards are operations, IT, and just like leadership, period, right? Executive leadership. I think marketing can have a role. I think, going around communications can have a role. Everyone in the company can have a role, but there does need to be clear ownership, and it does need to be, frankly, the sort of major thing that maybe wasn't mentioned as much in the last slide, but as companies are also fragmenting AI more, it also becomes more expensive. And I think it's like 12.9 million on average across companies of multiple sizes. That obviously swings a lot higher for enterprise and a lot lower for startups. But $12.9 million USD per year is lost to just bad data practice in companies already. And that's not even related to AI yet. That's just like bad. That's just bad data, causing issues. So something important to mention there too. The way I want to kind of talk about the fix is I want to share a little bit before we talk about a little bit more about how Cansulta and how we recommend doing it. I do want to share kind of the preparedness checklist, and I'm just using manufacturing as an example here, but this is taking, long-standing innovation practice and adapting it to AI, right? And how you have to look at these different situations to see how your organization is ready to take the next step and move into actually bringing it to the organization. And again, not just slapping it on and letting it run. That includes, it starts with a gap test. So assessing not just the use case, not just the gap, but ownership. Also, where in the company, like, okay, if there are people already using AI in the organization, where is it, right? Have they seen things that we haven't seen yet? Are they already experiencing hallucination data issues, right? And then workflow friction, right? In this case, we're talking about plant and factory operations, but just as a very standard thing when you're tackling anything that, might not be returning ROI, why is that happening? But you have to make sure that you see, again, there has to be ownership. This is an important thing I want to keep stressing. And even an understanding that AI is already here and going. How are the tools you're existing also, like, how are they potentially actually adding more time as well? So looking at AI over engineering as well, that can actually be a friction point too. Then it's selecting a workflow. All right. So you choose, in this case, one real manufacturing workflow to improve. I have some things off to the side: shift handoff, supplier expediting, root cause, like a regulatory prep, schedule exception, like all these different things that go into making a plant and factory run, right? And that's a big use case for this, even robotics when that's worked into this as well. But yeah, what is that workflow after looking at that gap test? And again, having a clear owner who knows where that workflow is and potentially will own how to optimize it. Then a time truth exercise. Okay, so there is a big issue and a perception where AIs are supposed to save time, right? Some amount of time is saved every week on AI. Some amount of time can be saved. All these different companies making big promises, but realistically, where are leaders spending their times with decisions and data? And where is, in this case, where's the floor? Like it's being realistic, right? It's bringing those two worlds together and actually bringing everything down to earth so that AI is not useful just for like one person in the plant, but it's actually a streamlining operation. So this one's very key as well. And again, why ownership matters. Then even actually figuring out how AI will fit into it. And again, this is to avoid over engineering. This is to avoid security, right? Where does the regulatory thing come into play? Where does, governance, like, can certain people see information? Will a new AI assistant surface data that people are not supposed to see at different parts of the organization, or it doesn't matter to them, right? So understanding feasibility, safety, understanding, is there a cybersecurity practice? Some major organizations have their own IT that has pre-existing standards. How do these things fit in there? And again, how can ownership and leadership work together in this case too? And then obviously figuring out what is that one metric, figuring out what is that workflow leading to, and then building a 30-day operating plan, which again, the AI PACE program is more attuned in helping set up. But just to kind of go over it all should lead up to a sprint. So that's like the that's your pre-workshop to do inside an organization. It's something that one leader do. It's something that a group of leaders, a C-suite can do at a mid-market. It's something that a group of managers can do, right? A team can even do. But now it's like, where do you actually go, right? And so, okay, you found your workflow, and now you have to really audit, again, what kind of tools does it already connect to? We're already using technology. We've already got our, data, our Dropbox, our Google Drive, our databases. Where is AI providing immediate leverage? So figuring that out in week one, and then building off of that, right? Week two, leadership has to interact with the tool itself, and whoever the owner is, they must use the tool. They must read about the limitations, the good and the bad, because that's another, key missing piece that we see at Cansulta. And it's very important to mention that without the core understanding of capabilities, it just becomes a rush job, and it becomes a massive opportunity to miss out on real value. Then week three, it's actually fair to say that, okay, we might have found 3 or 4 different leverage points, and it's actually okay to ship or kill and make a decision on, there can't really be an in the middle where we're just going to kind of see what works and try it for a month. Like there should be a set time in the sprint where you decide, okay, these are the friction points. This is where AI provides leverage, and we're going forward. And if there's a few things that feel like they're actually going to add more time, it's best to maybe kill those off a little bit early or defer those to another sprint, so you can really focus on what offers immediate leverage and making that decision. So this is actually, it becomes a decision-making exercise, not necessarily just how to adopt AI. And then obviously week 4, telling the organization what moves, sharing measurable wins once you've got it ready to go, maybe in that last week. And then this just becomes a cycle, right? This can be, a month is just a starting point. It could be a couple months, but again, the whole point of the, sort of the C list is to focus on, not just quarters anymore, but really focusing on moving with the speed of innovation and momentum in the company, and making sure that you are really finding bottom line value that you're looking for. So small, consistent iteration beats the big bang transformations every time. We're seeing that in the industry, as sort of mentioned by those stats earlier. And that's the pivot. That's when you know when to pivot. And that's how you know how to keep momentum, rather than, again, rushing to the top really quickly and hoping to put as much AI into things, only to discover it's actually not saving you money anymore. It's actually costing you, your employees, and even your bottom line. And then after you have those, first 30 days, after you have that checklist, you're seeing 15 to 30% faster workflow execution, which does get higher the more you add to it, right? Manual effort reduced, again, minus 20 to 40%. We're already seeing this across organizations. And there's opportunities for that to get higher, and have people who are focusing on menial tasks focus on actual revenue generating tasks and ideation and, more visionary activities, as they call them, especially at a leadership level. 4 to 8 hours a week recovered. Again, this could be more. It could be, AI has the capability of not only augmenting jobs, but creating new jobs inside of organizations as well, even at the mid-market, even at the enterprise. And then again, back to that ownership, that committee drift gets AI projects every time. We see it at Cansulta. You see it across every single study. The moment there's 30 people trying to all own AI together, you've already kind of lost the race. And even if it's an attempt to get ahead of competitors, even if there's massive budgets thrown at it, that 95% rate is quite alarming of failed AI pilots, right? Your goal is to get to first measurable use cases in 30 days, and you want that to become a system. You want that something that proof, ownership, time back, and then you keep that momentum going. You stick to a pace, you stick to a standard, rather than rushing to the finish line. So that's the AI pace, everyone. And yeah, thanks so much for tuning in and learning about it.